Mark Fisher, welcome to the Active Life Podcast.
Buddy, great to be here.
It's good to have you. You know, it's funny when you interviewed with Stu on the WTF Gym Talk podcast.
Yeah.
I knew who you were, but I didn't know a lot about your story. And I thought Stu did a really good job asking questions to bring out some of the essence of what it is that you do. I know he spent some time there before you started, so that was good for him. We got to have lunch, and then you created this document, the little book of gym marketing secrets.
That's right.
All right.
That's the one.
Nailed it. And I really enjoyed it. And so there are some things in there that I want to talk to you about. And I think it'll be interesting for people to hear what you put in there through the contextual lens of how you came to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of just hey, let's talk about marketing and growing a gym.
Right.
It's sure, that's very dry. That's very boring. Most of the people listening to this probably aren't owning and trying to grow a gym.
Yep.
Some are.
Yep.
But I think that the stories behind how this all came to be will be really interesting.
Yep.
The reason I thought it'd be fun to talk to you about the document is because I find it so short, to the point, simple, and effective that their number one criticism will probably be there wasn't that much in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
True.
And I found that funny myself because everything you need to know is in it.
Yeah.
How to apply it now is up to you.
And I think that is a fair, maybe not criticism, but an observation, of course, is the book is it's a comprehensive guide of truly all the things you can do, because there's not an unlimited number of things you can do to grow a gym. However, number one, it doesn't tell you exactly how to do all of those. You get into the weeds some. There's definitely some actionable thing, but I'm the first to concede some of the strategies require a little bit more nuance. And depending on one's skill set, to be very frank, you might really need somebody to really lay out exactly what the script is supposed to be if you're going to talk to strangers, or exactly how one goes about developing relationships with business partnerships. That's just beyond the scope of what I could put into a book that I wanted to make dense. I think the other caution that I would share with readers, you can't do all of these things. And in fact, the book can be purchased on Amazon, but you can get a free copy at gymmarketingsecretsbook.com. And what I like about it is I've been doing modest updates as the book has been released. And the one update that's relatively recent that I wouldn't say is massive, but was very important, was putting a disclaimer: do not do all these things. Because in addition to not getting in the weeds about exactly how you do each of these strategies, the other thing that might not be apparent is you can't do all of these. Time is going to be a constraint. You would need probably 3 full-time people to actually do all of these. And some of these you shouldn't do. So part of the art is figuring out which of these one should be doing. Now, the way the book is structured, you're going to need the tools in the first section. You'll need some things to generate leads so people find out about you. You need some things to nurture the leads so people come to like and trust you. And then you need some systems to convert those leads so the people that now have something of a relationship with you take some action in response to some invitation and then hang out. And then at the very end, there's a little bit about, okay, well, what does this look like in a day, a week, a month? So that is something that it's hard to talk in maxims about because it depends on your skill set, your history. Do you have a big database of former clients? What market are you in? And as somebody that coaches a lot of gym owners, I will tell you, I'm of the opinion that one of the great unvoiced models that is not always appreciated is something that works in Midtown Manhattan does not work in Northern Jersey. And I can speak to this firsthand now, owning a gym in Midtown Manhattan and owning a gym in another very, very different market. Some of these models, or systems, I should say, are going to work better or worse depending on where you are.
I look at running a business like sports, because I grew up playing sports. There's a few things here. One is the intangibles are always the intangibles. And so the book that you wrote for marketing a gym could just as easily be used for marketing a deli.
100 million percent.
So I wrote a book in a similar vein 3-4 years ago called Turn Pro, the fitness professional's guide to ethical sales and career fulfillment.
Yes.
And the goal of that book was sales, sales,
Yep.
sales in a way that feels good and is valuable.
Mhm.
I have one guy in particular who sticks out in my mind who reached out to me because he owns a sod company, sells grass.
Right.
And he's like, this book allowed me to quit my side gig
Yes.
and just focus on selling my grass.
Yeah.
I was like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And recently somebody else
Yes.
reached out and they were like, yeah, I run a corporate wellness company and this should be required reading for anybody in the health and fitness space.
Yep.
So it's interesting how that kind of stuff works, right? You
Yeah.
make it because you want it to be consumed by people in the world where we both live.
Yep.
And it's applicable to anybody. My mom's listening to this.
Yeah.
She runs a day camp.
My mom.
She could listen and
Yeah.
read, right?
Yeah, it's so true, right? Because the purposely, and again, this is very meta because it's part of what's covered in the book.
Sure.
You have to be clear on who it is you're serving. But yeah, you're right. It's almost grotesquely mapped on for gym owners. You could really just like scratch out gym owners and say, well, brick and mortar small business owner, right? It's like going to really, most of that stuff will transfer, right? Because the principles are going to be the principles.
Well, there were 5 topics in the book in particular that I wanted to cover with you. I wrote them down here so I don't forget. 1 is identifying the avatar client. 2 is the ground game. 3 is the partnerships. 4 is the sales strategy, and 5 is the strategy. We might get to all of them. We might not. But the reason I'm most interested in starting with the avatar with you is you've had outsized success running Mark Fisher Fitness in
Yes.
Manhattan.
Yes.
I think you would acknowledge that some of that was even by accident,
Yeah. Yeah. Completely.
right?
Yeah.
And what I find is that almost anytime I talk to somebody who has that kind of success, millions of dollars a year in a
Yeah.
fitness business,
Yeah.
by accident, what you can, and I don't mean to take the skill and the work away from you.
No. Yeah. I agree with your assessment.
The common thread is they went so deep on a single person's needs
Yes.
that they were so different than everybody else.
Yep.
They never had to have a conversation about being better.
Yep.
Talk to me about that with MFF,
Yeah.
because I imagine some of the lessons there
Yeah.
became for the book. You know, the
Yeah.
tagline on your website, serious fitness for ridiculous people.
Yes.
Like-
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Go on.
Yep. So I do think that is maybe the overarching principle. This is maybe reductive. I'll say it out loud. We'll see if we agree with it or we can kick it if not. But to some extent, I think of all businesses, and certainly Mark Fisher Fitness, but I think all businesses at their best are arguably a love letter from the founder to a person, to at least to a specific kind of person. And Mark Fisher Fitness was very much born out of me wanting to make something for my friends. So my background was as a professional actor. I lived in New York City. I got very into training, and not just kind into training. I got really, 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 really into training. So when I like things, I go really all in. And it was interesting because I found myself at a certain point in my development, on the one hand, having these people that I looked up to so much that a lot of listeners are probably familiar with, and particularly my corner was actually not it seems there's like a couple different main corners. So I didn't come from the CrossFit corner. I came from the Perform Better, StrengthCoach.com, T-Nation corner. And there's some overlap there, certainly,
Yep,
right?
I've been in both.
Yeah. So a lot of those people I had such esteem for, and I looked up to, and I learned so much from. And it was so clear that my friends were never going to hear from these people and that they are amazing. And it wasn't their role. It wasn't their job to share what I felt was very important information that was really useful, that could really help people, that I was really passionate about sharing. And for me, Mark Fisher Fitness from the beginning was an art project for my friends. And being a theater person and having trained many theater actors, but also having known a lot socially, is a very specific set of fears, a very specific set of desires, a very specific set of aspirations about how their body looks, feels, and performs. So while there's a lot of things that, in retrospect, I didn't know and I could have done better, I think one of the things that I did well, but I will first concede I lucked into it, was from day one, my marketing was always directed very specifically. Even the brand was designed as catnip for a certain kind of person. And I think, and this isn't something the book goes into greater detail, but I think a higher level nuance about this, I do think there's some art around, because it is also true that with this business, and this isn't the only way to do this, is very personally branded, right? The business is a reflection of me and my eccentricities, yeah? So it was a reflection not just of these people I cared about, but also me in service of them. And I think that's a lot of why it did as well as it did. And I'm talking really tactically. This is not just like at a high level, energetically, because I created for a certain type of person, they were drawn to me. It meant that when I started writing the very first emails to sell Mark Fisher fitness programs, I was very clear on exactly what it was that I knew I'd maybe make jokes about, but I knew were actual pain points in these people's lives that I loved and I cared about so much. And I could paint a picture for them about where they could go. And importantly, I also, not to be underappreciated, was completely certain that I was the person to help them, right? So I remember when I started making the transition from acting, and you'll appreciate this, this actually feels very a Sean Pastuch move. I went into my talent agent's office just as I was starting to take fitness serious. And I was still auditioning at this point, in no uncertain terms. I said something to the extent of, there's literally no one that's going to do a better job with your clients than me. If you have clients and they need help with their fitness, there's no one that's going to care more. There's no one that knows more. There's no one that's willing to do whatever I need to do to make sure they have great results. I'm going to keep them safe. I'm going to keep their body safe. I'm going to get results. I'm going to do it as fast as we can safely, and I will give them everything. If you have any clients that need help with their fitness, I'm begging you, for them, send them to me, right? And that level of certainty, in retrospect, I look at it now and I wonder if that, maybe it was not as humble as it could have been, but I don't know. I still kind of stand by it, particularly at that time. There was a unique stacking of my deep understanding of what their world was with what had become a pretty sophisticated skill set from my professional education as a fitness professional that allowed me to have a level of confidence and certainty going into it that, is again, maybe another thing that's not in the book, but I think is another thing that maps onto this is it's hard to succeed big if you don't believe in yourself big, right? And, part of how you get there is education. It's also the evidence of achieving success over and over and over. So by the time I did this, there was no part of me that doubted that I couldn't really help these people. So I'll pull up there and we can, to the extent that it's valuable, dig back into Avatar a little bit. But yeah, that's a little bit about, I think, the story about how we got there and how that supported MFF, both being born and then what it became.
Can we dive into some of the detail there?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I think it's one of the beliefs I have is that there are people who will do all of the things that you would tell them or that I would tell them and still fail.
Yep.
And the reason that they would fail is because they spend too much time doing and not enough time becoming. And what I mean when I describe that is you didnchoose 25 to 35.
Right.
Actor likes going to this place on his lunch break and is into these colors and design something and then try to talk to a person you didn't know.
Yes.
You were like, I'm talking to my friends on a deep level.
Yes.
So what was in those emails? Like you said, you knew the pain points. What's an example of a pain point?
I mean, I would be so fun. I think I can access them actually because they're still in my emails, particularly because at the beginning, I didn't even have a newsletter, right? I had been following a lot of the nascent beginnings of online fitness people. So to some extent, that was another thing that really was helpful for me is I was such a student of the game and I was reading and absorbing a lot of online copy. The retrospect was some good stuff. So the examples of things would have been, and a lot of it also was very jokey and it was very raunchy. And it was things like, picture yourself on Fire Island, with the sun beaming down on your toned, muscular upper back as your thin designer t-shirt falls on it. And you turn back and there you see your ex-boyfriend and you see him just looking at you with lust and feeling so badly for having broken up with you. It was things like that. It wasn't literally that, but directionally that was kind of it, right? And in practice, Another thing that I've reflected on over the years that I think has served me as a marketer is having a background as a classically trained actor. Because there's a lot to be said for a lot of marketing is getting inside the conversations already going on in someone's head. And that's what acting is. Acting is literally thinking about, well, if I was this other person and I believe this other person believed and I had the life circumstances they had, how would I feel? What would I think? What is the interior life of this actor, of this character? Because if you look at a play or if you look at a film script, none of that is on the paper. You have to bring all that in there. And as it turns out, that's very similar to actually to what you do with marketing, right? Now, the difference, of course, is play opposite to fictional. And with marketing, you're actually trying to think about what it's like to be real people. And I think empathy is an underappreciated tool there. I think this is the thing I see a lot of trainers and gym owners run into issues is they just can't get out of their own perspective about what they love and what they care about. And here's a pro tip for people listening, because I know this is, I say as a compliment, a very probably nerdy audience listening. Nerdy trainers in particular often fall in love with their own passion for the process and forget to stay in love with their client, who's usually not going to be necessarily interested in the process. And that can be your shtick. You can build a brand and a business where people know I come to you because you're so good at what you do, and you can make your clients nerd. And I think we've done some of that at Mark Fisher Fitness. But when you're talking about marketing, if you're talking about lead generation, there's going to be a small percentage of the people that are so interested in the process, they're interested in what they're interested in, which is like, what are the benefits that I want? What are the fears, the frustrations, the things that I want to go away? And can you help me get there? So a lot of marketing speaks more to that. That's not to say that ultimately there's not a time and place to talk about process, but the metaphor that feels correct is selling the smile and not the braces. And a lot of trainers, a lot of gym owners, they love the braces, and you should. Particularly you and I, of all people, we will not shame you for loving how great you are at putting on the braces. We think it's important that you are world-class at that. And when it comes to the marketing, while there's somebody said for really building credibility, maybe a little bit of seasoning of that can be useful. In practice, marketing is often the creation or speaking to an emotion that is there, right? Which is not a cerebral process. It's not about the toys, the methodologies of training. It's about, this is what you care about. This is where you're hurting. I can help you. And then, yeah, sure, you can tell them how you get there, but it's really about the outcomes they want.
Right. Well, you heard Cody talk about it today during our process.
Yeah.
Do you want the bullet points or do you want the details?
Yeah.
And most people choose the bullet points.
Yeah.
And you know what you're saying there. First of all, I want to go back a step in a second, but what you're speaking to there is the ability to understand what somebody wants.
Yes.
And to be able to just assure them that you can provide it.
Yep.
And there's a big difference between the person who can help you with the exercise and the person who can help you decide to exercise.
Right.
And I would argue the one who can help you decide to exercise is actually more important.
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen any really good data that this kind of exercise is that much better than this kind of exercise, regardless of what that and this are.
Yep. And I think two other pieces of evidence that feels pretty strong at this point is that number one, and I'm not presupposing this is everybody's mission, right? But if I'm thinking about part of our role as having a public health mission, we're looking to contribute to healthier societies and communities. We know that in practice, while optimization requires a lot of work and a lot of effort, small hinges in fitness will really swing big doors. So by all means, yes, let's be as excellent as we can at the craft. But in practice, there's somebody said for this is more of a volume play of more of the society is doing things that are fine rather than a smaller percentage of the society doing things that are optimal. The former probably leads to a better world and reduces human suffering in really powerful ways, right? If someone goes from doing nothing to doing something, even, and again, you know, hopefully we're not doing things that are obviously injurious to joints, but that's a big deal. That changes society. I think the second thing that we have evidence for that relates to this conversation is if you look at the responses to various modalities of therapy, it seems pretty clear it's mostly the connection. It's mostly the therapist and the client's relationship. So again, this is, I think I'll reiterate one more time. Clearly on this podcast, we're not saying don't worry about good exercise technique or don't understand variables or understand the way various loads can create various adaptations. We're just saying that there's an interpersonal piece that undergirds not just the marketing and not even just the fitness results, but the way that hopefully our work is impacting our society and our communities.
Yeah, well, the best program is the one that you're going to follow for a long time consistently.
Totally.
Totally.
Yeah.
Now, if you'd follow any program consistently for a long time, sure, let's get into the nuance of which one's best for you. I wanted to get back to what you were talking about earlier. You were like when you were describing your thin designer T-shirt hugs the muscles of your back.
Yeah.
You didn't talk about exercise at all.
Right.
So I want to clarify for people.
Yeah.
Exercise is the braces.
Yes.
Nobody comes because they want to exercise.
Yep.
They come because they want the results that they think they're going to get from exercise are going to afford them in life.
Yep.
They're really buying a feeling.
Yep.
And to get even more specific, when you said your boyfriend sees your back, you were talking to a guy.
Yes.
So you were talking to gay men.
Yes.
As a straight man.
Yep.
Well, that I find that so interesting. And
people often do.
And I have a question for you before we get into that. Were most of the people who ended up joining MFF working out somewhere else, or were they not in the fitness world at all?
Yeah. That one, I think the answer was all over.
Right.
I think we always wanted to be a place that was welcoming if you had never worked out before. If you were very afraid of gyms, we wanted to be a place where there was just so much kindness and gentleness and enthusiasm for your presence. You felt good. But in practice, it was a little bit all over the map.
But that's what I find so valuable about it is today I think we underserve the market so badly in so much that less than 20% of people in society have a gym membership.
Right.
Less than 40% of the ones who have it use it. So now we're looking at, 8% of people on a high end using a gym in the United States, which is a scary thought. Let's say there's another 10% of society who exercises but not in a gym. They go running, they do races, they do surfing, they're boxing, whatever. So 18% are consistently physically active.
Yes.
Your ability to draw people in who otherwise wouldn't be is to me more important than what is typically happening in a gym setting, which is getting healthy people fit.
Yes. And this is an interesting challenge for the industry, which makes sense, but is a challenge nonetheless. So it is true that, again, assuming the listeners of this podcast are not your average birds, right? This is likely, if you're listening to this, you take your craft very seriously. And it is only normal, if you're passionate about your topic, for it to remain interesting, you're going to continue learning. And sometimes it can lead a certain trainer, a certain gym owner, down a garden path of details that stop being necessarily relevant to the client. Now, if you become a sports performance specialist, or if you become a clinician, okay, well, now a lot of this stuff does start to matter, right? The fine points of undulating periodization are going to start to matter, right? The grip where your hands on the barbell might matter for certain adaptations you're creating for sport. However, I've always been interested in the people that have never worked out before. Now, the challenge with this is, one, to do that has to develop a tolerance and endurance for talking about the basics over and over. And it is interesting because there is a challenge, I think, and this is a real challenge. I'm not saying this to be negative towards these people, but there are people I think just get so bored of talking about a push-up. And it seems like this has settled down a little bit too. I'd be very curious for your perspective on this too, but a lot of trainers that are our very best trainers seem to oftentimes start to bump up out of scope and seem to bump up and getting into places where they maybe shouldn't. And it coming from a beautiful place. It's because they love it. They really want to help. They begin to start getting aggrieved and feeling like, okay, well, healthcare sucks, doctor sucks, physical therapist sucks, chiropractors suck. I'll fix them, I'll fix them, right? I teach breathing stuff. I'm good, and like, again, it doesn't come from a bad place. I think it's well-intentioned, but it really can present an issue because, again, somebody's got to be like making the space for like the mom that hasn't worked out before, just afraid and wants somebody that is friendly and nice and seems credible enough, but most importantly, is cautious to not make her feel bad and optimally makes her feel good and excited and welcomed and cared for. So yeah, I think it can be a real challenge. There's almost the smarter someone is, the more you could run into that trap.
What's interesting is we toe the line you're talking about. Right? We got to be known because we help people get out of pain without going to the doctor or missing the gym. And then we teach people how to help people get out of pain without going to the doctor or missing the gym. But the way we're doing that has so much more, like there is no diagnosis.
Right.
There is no like, oh, it's this muscle doing this thing.
Yep.
There is no treatment.
Right.
And there is no promise that we're going to get rid of your pain.
Yep.
It's all about, hey, if you were this person doing these things, it's likely you'd have less pain.
Right.
Would you agree? Yes. We're going to help you become that person. And it's likely your pain is going to reduce along the way, but we make no promises.
Right.
That has to be good enough for you to enroll with us. And the skill set around doing that has far more to do with interpersonal connection than it does with a special exercise.
Yeah.
We, as you learned today, we assess somebody effectively for 2.5 hours before we even invite them to be a client. Then their first 6 training sessions are an extended assessment. Most of that time is in conversation.
Yep.
It's not, we're not measuring joint, it's not that.
Right.
And so giving people a very simple education about, for example, what is pain?
Right.
Because if you think pain is an indicator that something is wrong, you're going to naturally pull away from it.
Right.
And oftentimes that pain that you're feeling is exactly what you need to feel to make the progress. So as you pull away from it, you make it less and less likely you're going to make progress. So when we build bumpers around what you're supposed to feel, it's easier for someone to do a thing that they could have done with any trainer.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, and pain is obviously such a delightful rabbit hole.
It is. It is. And what I love about it is I spend years
What you love about pain?
Yeah. I don't like enduring it.
I know.
But I spent years, a decade, trying to be the best in the world at helping remediate it and stay physically active. And what I learned in all that time was it rarely mattered what I did physically. And it very much mattered what I did mentally and emotionally.
Yep.
So that's what we're teaching for the most part.
Yeah.
Going back to the ideal client, the reason I want to stay here for a moment is because I think everything else hinges off of that.
Yep.
All the tactics after that are who are we doing it for?
Yep.
You have people now who are coming in who wouldn't otherwise exercise. You're targeting people who identify different sexually than you do.
Yep. And just to provide a little color on that, because people are often like, wait, what? This was a function of a few things. I mean, part of it was because I was a musical theater actor in New York City. There just weren't a lot of straight men, frankly, in my social community. And MFF is really for anybody. And the other thing that, is interesting, because when we think back to the beginning of MFF, to be clear, that was an example where it was clearly I was painting the picture of something that would appeal to, again, one of my gay male friends going out to Fire Island for the summer. But in practice, it never set out explicitly to be a queer gem. And really only in the past few years has it taken on that mantle, in part because I'm actually not as involved operationally. My business partner is a gay man, and the business is now run by women and gay men, right? Because certainly this was not a situation where I, as a straight man, was like, I'm the person to bring fitness to gay men. It just happened to be those were my friends, and it was a world I felt very comfortable in. And specifically the Broadway community was the specific subculture that happened to be a lot of queer identifying men, but really it was the Broadway community more so than queer people more generally. Well,
when I think about what I imagine it was, and I want to hear a little bit about that, because we talked about the emails, I want to hear about the experience.
Yeah.
I feel like, especially during the time when you started, maybe less so now, it was much easier for a straight man to be in a gay environment than it was for a gay man to be in a straight environment in the fitness world.
That's probably true.
True. And so it's kind of like when you think about, if someone can solve problem X, which is a big problem, surely they can solve problem Y, which is a small problem.
Right.
You being able to make a place that feels safe for people who don't typically exercise who are gay when you're a straight man who has an exercise science education.
Right.
indicates you probably can help the straight guy and woman also. Do you follow me there?
I think so, yeah. And certainly, it is very true. It has been a very specific type of straight man over the years
Sure.
that is comfortable in MFF. And we've definitely had some. As a percentage, I would feel comfortable saying probably less than 10% of our male identifying population have been heterosexual. But yeah, to your point, the other person that obviously piece of this is my business partner. Michael is still my business partner to this day. And it's exactly what you just said. He was someone that has always spoken really beautifully, not only about his experience as a client in gyms, but to this day, he's probably the most prominent queer identifying gym business coach, right? And his feelings of time of just feeling like not sure what his place is in this industry. And I don't mean to suggest that he has any animus towards the fitness industry at large or to gyms, but yeah, it's true. I think I can say this on Michael's behalf. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but yeah, listen, we grew up together. He was a kid in dance class. He was somebody that didn't necessarily feel comfortable or welcomed in a lot of gym environments. So to give him his credit, part of this was me thinking about people that I was personal friends with that I just loved so much, and I just so badly wanted to give them this thing. But I really want to give Michael some credit because his personal lived experience also undergirded all of that and contributed in a lot of important ways to MFF's culture, right? Because at a stupid high level, if you think about the brand is like words and design, a very dumb model, but that's kind of it. It's like, what are the words that you use? And then what's the design? What's the colors, the fonts, the templates, right? Well, I did the words and Michael did the design, right? So that's part of how MFF, from a design perspective, got pink and glittery. And again, it was always art. Like he and I were drafting off each other. And importantly, not to be underappreciated, we were drafting off of the clients. I say a lot of unusual, colorful things, and a lot of them fall flat. And then periodically, we would just notice and we call our members ninjas, for those not familiar. We would periodically notice the ninjas would just get fixated on something, right? So even the term ninja, Michael would come in and watch me teach class in 2011 before we even really committed to doing a thing together. And he would note, I would be in class, and be like, you guys are nailing this. You are ninjas. Let's go. And then the clients started referring themselves as ninjas and signing off as Ninja, great class tonight, Ninja Kelly Jean. So it was interesting because Keeler was watching what was happening. And for my part, I was broadly speaking in tongues. And then Keeler was watching this and starting to codify the things that I were saying, which was this strange combination of vulgar stand-up comedy, performance art, life coach, exercise science professor, the strange swirling thing. And Keeler did a good job, I think, of codifying those things and really making some standards that we were then able to build a brand and a culture around. So at any rate, I just want to acknowledge that and his important role that he played in all that too.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
If you did all of that,
yeah,
and then people showed up to a sterile environment that was just like every other gym.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah.
The last thing I want to do on the avatar is if you could take me into the room 10 years ago, what would I have been seeing, hearing, smelling?
Yeah. 10 years ago was a different time. So because here's the other thing too, in full transparency, part of what that business, which I still own but I don't operate, is having to figure out with my support, I don't mean to make it sound like they're on their own, is the business has changed, the people are older. Although I'm still the name and I'm the voice of the emails, although I'm the dancing monkey, the culture really isn't coming for me at this point. I think the business is finding out what does it mean to be a different group of people than those who started that are now in middle age. It's a different time because 10 years ago, it was a shit show. It was madness. Not only was the space very colorful, but I mean, the whole thing, the types of things I used to say, I often reflect on the things that I would never be able to get away with saying today.
Can you give us an example?
Oh boy. I mean, is this like a...
They're grown-ups.
I can go, okay. So this is like a childhood warning. Okay. So, so children, please pause this. So this is another one I used to say. So we had a whole approach to teaching movement, right? And I was reading a lot about educational pedagogy and, okay, how do I make this sticky? So instead of, talking about anterior ribcage flare, we talked about ribcage boner. And instead of posterior pelvic tilt, we'd call that sad dog. And instead of anterior pelvic tilt, we would call it porn star. And sometimes when someone was in a hinge and they were over, to help them, I'd like, oh, we need more porn stars. So here's what I want you to do. Imagine it's LA and the sun is setting and you're in a beautiful waterless pool at the bottom and you're surrounded by 100 dudes and they're all jerking off and they cover you in an ocean of bukkake. That's the kind of porn star I want to see. And then I would go on to teaching class, right? Now, again, was that an effective teaching tool? Probably not. They were realistically, they were like, what do you mean, arch my back more?
Oh, I get it now.
But, it was that sort of, and I had probably 50 different bits like that that were so vulgar and were so over the top and were done in a playful way. And again, I'll say this, the older I am, the more I've reflected on this, like, is that necessary trauma informed? Like, maybe not. Did I bump over a line at some moments? Probably. But I don't know. I kind of always got away with it. I think because, and I'm not saying I'm perfect at this, but I think at my best, I think I do this pretty well when I teach. There was such motherly wholesomeness and such an unconditional positive regard and warmth and love and care for the person that I would say these over-the-top things. Also, notably, were not just a little over the line. They were in the next county. They've left the time zone. They've crossed the sea and are in a different continent. So I think between going so far and it being married to such a strange, gentle, motherly, wholesome, nurturing demeanor, that I got away with a lot of things that, in retrospect, were like, whoa, I don't know if I would try that now. And also, I was a younger person, right? As you get older, you change a little bit. That doesn't feel quite authentic to me the way that it did then.
Right. But what made you think that it would fly in the first place? It's a ballsy thing to do.
Yeah. Well, I think it's because I was like a poorly behaved child that kept getting more positive feedback from it.
Okay.
And theater people are raunchy. So I think that's another little bit of context for people listening that might be like, you said what? Theater people are very sexual. They're raunchy. Theater people say a lot of, over the top things. We are, running around in, our underwear in between quick changes off stage. And admittedly, I was on the far extreme of pushing the absurdism as far as I could. So I think I also knew, I might even say this, maybe this is overly charitable, my memory trying to make it seem better than it was. I also think I could read a room. I had a good sense of what material was going to land in a certain class or not. And to some extent, particularly at that time, that was the red meat that a lot of people were coming for, as I was saying so many things that people were. And truly, I think part of what really worked, I think we can't underestimate the fact that I went as far as I could. Because in practice, and again, I should note, the very different culture these days. But at that time, we would run into issues sometimes with some of the coaches trying to do some of the bits, and they didn't get there. They'd be like, all right, everyone, and then at the end of the class, I look forward to having an orgy with you. And everyone's like, what? That's so creepy, So, and I think another thing not to be appreciated, now that particular example was not accurate, but I'm often speaking very generally to you, right? I was never directing it at an individual person. It was very important to me never to put somebody on the spot, right? So I would say a lot of things that were like abstract and colorful and maybe not to someone's taste, but even someone, and there were people in there that were a little bit more conservative by demeanor, maybe they would roll their eyes, but there was still steak to the sizzle. They still know, like, okay, but all right, so can you coach me up on the swing again? Because I know you're really good at coaching me up on the swing, and you're helping me really feel this in the right places. So yeah, that's my assessment of how that all happened.
Well, what I love about it is you've described that you've kind of swung back to a little bit more of a tame environment now.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But I imagine it's still
not normal. It's still not normal, and it's still like there's like, yeah, the space is still very colorful. It's pink and it's glittery, and there's giant sloths, and there is, the odd sex toy still around in some moments, and the trainers still have potty mouths, and many of them do dress up in strange costumes from time to time, and people walk around wearing onesies like it's no big deal. It's interesting, the gym feels, compared to old MFF, so tame and middle age, but it feels still not normal compared to any other gym.
Yeah, well, going back to Stu from before, he was like, that was fucking wild.
Yeah, and we honestly oftentimes take it for granted because it doesn't feel like that intense for us. But again, that's part of the nature of when you're steeped in that kind of culture. It just becomes, this is the norm. This is how we move.
Well, it's like a rock star coming home and, playing a bar.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm exaggerating. I'm being hyperbolic, but it's the idea of like, you've had the ultimate of ultimate. Like, we're going to push this.
Yep.
We're going to find out how far we can push it before it breaks.
Yep.
And now you're like, well, we know where we can push it until it breaks. We're not going to break it.
Yeah. I think that's true. And listen, like part of it is, and I can't say actually, honestly, as intense it was, we ever really got a lot of feedback about them. We had some here and there. I mean, definitely for some people, it's not the right taste. And there were some things that, without going into detail, that people did in a few moments where I was like, you did what? That wasn't the right thing to do. But overall, I think overall it's been an organic softening in part because we were talking about this for the podcast. I also just think it's a lot of the same staff and people have just gotten older, like the material that's funny when you're 30 is not the material that's funny when you're 50. I think this is, as artists, people change. I think most stand-up comedians go into different stages of their career. So, but yeah, it's interesting to reflect on what it used to be. And it's an interesting moment to find, okay, well, what is the version of this that feels authentic, that feels, and again, going back to this previous comment, if our client avatar is now older, what's in service of them? Because I think and this is a nuanced conversation, but it both has to be like authentic to that particular group of people that are in service to that community, but also the needs of that community at this point, right? And that's like a bigger conversation we even have about, the way the business models progressed, right? Where, listen, classes can be well-coached classes with self-limiting exercises can be a great fit for a certain kind of person at a certain age with certain limitations, maybe becomes less so, predictably, for most people most of the time. As you get older, you're going to get a few more chinks in the armor. You have a little more discretionary income. Some of the things you can get away with when you're younger are harder to do when you're older. And that, too, presents its own kind of issue, right? If you have a clientele that actually does age, there start to actually be ramifications of what fitness product is best to even serve those people.
So now people should have a really good understanding of who's in there, what's not. If we go into partnerships a little bit, you have to be selective about who you partner with. Because if you go into, like one of the things you talked about in the book is partnering with chiropractic offices, physical therapy offices. You talked about, what was it? Demographics and geographics. Geographics being businesses that are local to you that have some of the same client crossover, and demographics, they have the same person. Now, the geographic side, if you were to go into, for example, a chiropractic office who's very uppity, ties tight, yada, yada, clinical, and you're like, we'd love to partner, and then they send their first person to you, and they come back and they tell that doctor's like, what? So how do you gauge the people that you should partner with?
So I think, the first thing is, again, truly things have evolved the way where if it was a very conservative place, they would maybe feel weird having sent to us, but almost as a rule, if you're in New York, you're probably not that shocked by it. Is it for everybody? No, absolutely not.
More generally speaking. That's the question. I am interested in how you chose. But for the sake of the audience, I'm also interested in how they should choose. Because there's the thought process of like, everyone should be my partner. No, they shouldn't.
They shouldn't. And also, if we're talking specifically about business partnership, one important consideration that I think is often missed is you have to talk to a lot of businesses, right? Now, MFF, to your point, is a unique situation. It's not necessarily relevant to a lot of people because MFF, you're right, is actually not the right fit. And there have definitely been situations where, there's a company called Big Gray Ice Cream who at one point was looking for brands to do activations to do their truck around, and a Ninja was working for them and they were going to do something. And then they were like, corporate was like, no, we can't do anything with you. You're adult, your positioning is too adult or something. They said like that, which I totally get, right? However, for the hypothetical gym owner listening, even a trainer looking to develop these relationships, I don't know. It's an interesting question. I would imagine most of you, frankly, aren't so polarizing. You have to be that thoughtful about this. If anything, when I think about business partnerships, the thing that I often see people drop the ball on is not appreciating it, what a numbers game it is. So if you're looking to develop, and I'm sure that some of you have experience with now running this facility and also having seen you walk around as mayor of Long Beach, in practice, if you talk to 100 geographic or demographic partners, your coffee shops, your restaurants, your hair salons, your car wash, and your chiros, your supplement stores, your meal plans, your whatever. In practice, I would say 5% of those people will play ball, which means if you talk to 100 businesses, you're going to be lucky if 5 of them really turn into fruitful partnerships. So yeah, it's an interesting question. I don't know that, depending on one's brand, I would encourage them to be too small with the basket of people they're willing to talk to, particularly because for the geographic businesses, the most obvious cliche example being if you have a gym in the strip mall, you should probably talk to the other businesses in the strip mall, right? Part of it becomes a numbers game because just in practice, a lot of people that run other businesses are busy. They're maybe not, they don't run their business in a very intentional way. They've got things going on. They can't conceive of a way that this is not a value detractor for them, right? So, and the book goes into greater details about the way you get around that. And I'll tell you, like, at a high level, it's like, just be so generous. And you were talking about this before too, right? Your vision for Active Life is to be the most valuable business to other businesses in Long Beach. You nailed it. Like, that's the game. And that's a thing that I think gym owners, and to the extent the trainers do this, sometimes get in their own way, is they're just keeping too close of a score. They're doing too quid pro quo. And you just have to give to an unreasonable degree. And at a certain point, first of all, it's good to do in general. I think it's just like a good way of being in life. And second of all, it strategically will work, because for some percentage of those people, even if they didn't want to work with you, the law of reciprocity will kick in and they'll just start to feel so uncomfortable because you keep setting them business and you keep buying their things and you keep promoting them, their clients, and you keep tagging your gym and their business on your Instagram. So that's some of how I think about business partnerships. And I admit that's one of those things, quite frankly, MFF didn't do a lot of. And I don't think necessarily so much because the brand is polarizing, just because New York City is a little bit of a different market. Yeah, and frankly, it's also, that just wasn't one of the skill sets I had developed earlier in my career. I'll reiterate again, this book, if they get it, there's a lot of different things you can do. You don't need to do all of these things. If you find a few things you're great at, just keep doing more of what's working. Maybe don't worry about trying to do all of them. Whereas the gym in New Jersey, it's a very different situation, right? I didn't have a big clientele base already. I didn't have several thousand people that I actually knew as an actor lived in New York who just had a lot of friends. So if you're starting from ground zero, well, you don't really have a referral game. You don't really have an existing database or professional network. I mean, maybe if you live in the area, you'll know some, but now you got paid ads and you got going to meet strangers. And for going to meet strangers, there's a lot of different things, but it's either hand-to-hand combat, live events, or these business partnerships, which I think become very, very important and can be like a gold rush in striking oil, but it's like striking oil. It's going to be 1 out of 20 times. It will be amazing and you'll get 100 leads, but even that won't happen in the first 3 months. And I'll just say, again, if you're thinking about, okay, this is a lot of stuff, what do I do? I think business partnerships are important. It's usually not the first arrow I pull from my quiver because it is a long tail game. And it depends, again, on the context of the gym owner. But if you need leads tomorrow, it's a good thing to do, but you're probably not going to get leads tomorrow. And also, it's just weird. We go back to this interpersonal social intuition piece. It's just weird. If I'm looking to develop a relationship with you, I'm not coming in asking for a favor right outside the gate.
Well, the interesting thing about that is, I mean, it goes back to the too much doing, not enough being that we were talking about before. Because I think that there's a hidden value to going out and forging those relationships. You mentioned you saw me be the mayor of Long Beach today, right? We walked 3 blocks.
Yep.
And I'm proud that you got to see
Yes.
that. Everybody who comes out notices that.
Yep.
And what's interesting about it to me is that it's not unless, in my experience, I'm aiming to be that way, that the other stuff I do works.
Right.
So in other words, it's, if you're like, I'm just going to run paid ads, but I don't want to go out and be in my town.
Yeah.
What is the reason you don't want to go out and be in your town? Forget about the quid pro quo of I'm going to make friends and they're going to send me things.
Yeah.
Take that off the table.
Yep.
Why don't you want to know the barista's name?
Yeah.
Why don't you want to say thank you to the waiter and make their day?
Yeah.
Why don't you want to know the person who does the building inspections? Why is it unimportant? And that to me is a canary in a coal mine to the concept that the other stuff is going to fail because your attitude about how you're going to do it is wrong. There's too much transactional thought process.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
I think that's right. I think that's a big piece of it. And I think a few other pieces that sometimes get in the way that can be helpful to get coached on is, first of all, it's even worse if you are thinking of it transactional and you think marketing and sales is unethical.
Yep.
Now we really have problems because everything inside your body is like, no, 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 no. I think separate, but another factor here is there are a lot of people that love fitness and they love helping people, and they just have a little bit of social anxiety. They just feel a little bit nervous. It just doesn't feel comfortable for them to talk to people they don't know. It's just not in their nature. And that's normal. And it doesn't even necessarily, by the way, need to be social anxiety. You might just be more introverted. There's just some people who, left to their own devices, don't engage with strangers. There's entire parts of the country where we live where, frankly, that's a little bit more common than not. There's other American subcultures where it would be considered strange not to at least greet a passerby if you see them. So that, I think, is a very important thing, that if you want to be successful with any scale, and that's, I think, an important point, you're going to have to get good at that. Because if you don't care about scale, if you're a personal trainer and you develop a niche and you charge enough money, a lot of the stuff you probably shouldn't be, you're not listening to this podcast. It doesn't matter to you, right? This conversation isn't even interesting because you can probably do, and that's what I did for a lot of years, right? When I was an independent trainer in New York. Now, I wasn't charging probably what I could have, but my book was full. So I was obliquely interested in the business piece, but I was interested in the training piece, and that was enough. However, if you have a vision for your career, where you want to get to the place where you have a business that has some scale, which will have some benefits by way of a broader impact on more people, more possible income potential, more potential freedom to make money and not having to be the one service the hours, you have to get good at the marketing and sales piece. And in 2024, paid digital is no longer something you can rely on. And there was an era where it would have been reasonable to only do paid digital, because if you're quantifying time, money, and energy, that it made more sense to just stay in your studio and press the buttons, because it would have been so inefficient to go out in the world. Well, those days are gone. And there's a certain generation of individual that never learned how to do these other things now that are super important. I know that this might be transition if you want to talk more about the ground game piece, but yeah, you got to go meet the people. And I think, to your point, if the intention is, I'm going to go out there and connect and just spread positivity and spread energy and just see what I can do, just bump people up. Everyone around me, I want to bump them up. I want to give them just a little juice, a little good vibes, make a joke and just give them a smile. That's just a beautiful way of being in the world. And yes, are there business benefits to it? Yeah, there are. But I don't know, like, it only takes a minute to make a moment, as my friend Vince Gabriel says, you know?
Well, I think what you're speaking to there is something that's hard for people to grasp who aren't ready to do it. And it's not really a choice, in my opinion, if you want to be successful, to develop that skill set.
Yeah, it's true.
And so, like, there are people who we've referred collectively, locally.
Yeah.
12 to 24 clients who've never referred somebody back. They're still the best person locally at what they do, and they might never refer somebody. But there's a world in which, like, we're still doing the right thing by the person we're referring.
Yep.
And there's a world in which the person who gets referred over there has a friend who they refer over there.
Precisely.
And they say to the friend, how did you find out about them? Oh, the people over at Active Life. What's Active Life? So if you do the right thing, it's always likely to come back.
Yeah.
And when it comes to people who are uncomfortable having conversations with strangers, every lead is a stranger.
Yes.
Until you know.
Yes.
So you got to get good at it.
Yeah.
One of the things I used to ask people to do was, at their home, just talk into their phone as if they were making a selfie video. Then start walking up and down your own private street, talking to your phone like you're making a selfie video, because you're going to be worried your neighbors are judging you.
Yeah.
Then and progressively get busier and busier and busier in the locations, and eventually bring strangers into your selfie video asking them questions.
I love it.
And it ramps people up to, I have to just say something.
Yep.
And you know what happens is someone's going to come into your gym or to your business, whatever it is. if the only thing you can talk about is the braces that you put on their face,
Right.
instead of understanding what makes them smile,
Yep.
they're not going to buy.
Yep.
So it's a skill you have to develop. Let's get
Yep.
into the ground game a little.
Yeah.
What's the difference between ground game and partnerships?
Okay, so I think they're similar. They're both under a category I like to call meet strangers in person. Partnerships are meeting strangers that are other business owners, that the end game is not just the business owner, but them making introductions to other strangers that can become leads and find out about what you do. Ground game, the way I think of it, is more of a hand-to-hand combat strategy where you and or optimally your team are actually meeting people one-on-one and having conversations. So this is a great way to build awareness that you exist, because in practice, the goal for a brick and mortar gym is to become what Dean Jackson would call 3-mile famous. You're looking to obliterate obscurity. You don't need to be an Instagram influencer. It doesn't really matter if you only sell services to people that have to be able to commute to your gym. Your goal is that if someone walks into a hair salon a half mile from your gym and someone's like, hey, does anybody know what a good gym is or who the best trainer is? That everybody's heard of you. Everybody's at least heard of you. Now, that doesn't mean there's other stuff that has to happen after that. But to your point, no one can hire you if they don't know you exist, is a self-evident fact of life. So one thing that, and this was, again, something we had to learn how to do in our outlet, because in theory, this seems like, well, this makes sense. Go meet business partnerships, go to events. But at least for us, I had to really unpack, okay, like, because I'm telling them to do it, it's not happening. And the advantage, this is part of why I was so interested in doing this for the coach and I do, is like, all right, well, I guess I'm just going to drive out there and I'll do it with them. And then I had to think through, okay, well, what do we do, right? So the framework for doing this ground game, if you're going to do it one-on-one style, is I think you need a few things. I mean, first of all, you need to be clear on what is some carrot, what is some offer. And that can look very different based on your model. But for a lot of gyms that do, say, small group, you could do 2 free sessions, one of them being a consultation, assuming you have a consultative sales conversation. So it can look like different things, but understand these are individuals. They're not explicitly Googling you. They're somebody you're talking to hypothetically in front of a Target. So let's say you're in the Target, you're wearing your gear, you're all branded out, you got a big smile, your teeth has been brushed. So you're going to need some kind of offer. Ultimately, it's going to come up. I like to have some physical giveaway, whether it be a postcard or a business card with a QR code that they can opt in. I want to get their contact information, but you're not going to get all the time. So I'm going to give them something to opt into. And then importantly, you need a script. What is it that you say? Which sounds obvious, and people I think that are very adept at this will feel like this is maybe unnecessary. But particularly if you want people that are not you to do it, you need to be clear on what is the script. And the good news is this is a very short conversation. You're not having in most situations a long conversation. If you are, well, that's amazing. This must be somebody that really is kind of interested in fitness and interested in learning more about what you do. But for the most part, I'll make it easier for you. If you're doing ground game, the first line is, hey there, do you live in the area? Do you live in the neighborhood? And then you introduce yourself. You give them a 2 to 3 sentence UVP about who you help, how you help them. And then you let them know, hey, if you're interested in coming by sometime, here's what the next step would be, right? I think the fourth piece, and this is maybe the most important piece, is to operationalize it, have a daily or weekly goal for how often this happens. Because that's where this can go awry, because it can be very easy as the owner, and certainly if you're asking staff to do this, for this not to happen in the consistent manner it's necessary. This is also, I must concede, is not an overnight thing, right? We're all subject to the laws of the farm. We cannot harvest what we have not planted, the land we have not tilled. This does take time. But in practice, this is the way that I think about us. I think even if you're very busy as a gym owner, it feels reasonable that you can spend the time to do at least 10 of these conversations per week. You're going to have to do a lot more opens, right? So I love your suggestion there with the camera or the video itself. You just start by doing it by yourself. Well, maybe the first thing you do is this week, I'm just going to say 10 hellos to strangers, or I'm going to go out and I'm going to say hello to 3 strangers. And that's all I'm going to do, right? Because it can be nerve wracking. When I went out there with them, I confessed, for a guy that sold hair salon promotions on the street in New York City at one point, I felt a little nervous, like, oh yeah, it feels like a little bit nervous, right? But the good news is you get better at it. And if you do it every day, it stops being something you feel nervous about, right? So I think here's what these numbers might look like. If you as the gym owner have 10 of these conversations per week, and to be clear, this is not give 10 away cards, not like, hey there, can I get these cards? You get these cards? Okay, I gotta go, right? The cards are a proxy for a conversation where someone will ideally remember the gym, or ideally, here we go back again, you have a warm encounter, you have warm energy. Is the person always going to be receptive? No, some people are going to be busy. I think the fourth woman we talked to when I bravely led my team into the parking lot of our strip mall informed us that this was illegal, and she said, shame on you, and she ran up to go find the police that was entering the Stop and Shop. Now, the cop didn't come down, but to some extent, this, I admit, is another thing people feel nervous about is, yeah, that can happen. Like, there's going to be people that actually get mad at you. But I don't know, with all the love for those people, I'm not trying to ruin anyone's day, but if I'm really trying to say hello and be friendly, I think that's okay. And if you don't want to talk to me, well, that's okay too. And I'll just run you over with kindness and like love for you. And I think we're going to be okay here, right?
A simple tactic I like to add into that is find something about each person you say hi to compliment.
Yeah.
Like, and it should be genuine.
I
like your shoes. If you don't like their shoes, because I like your shoes isn't even the compliment. I love that those shoes have a bunch of different colors.
Yes,
that's cool.
Specific,
quirky.
Positive feedback.
Right.
Yes.
It feels good to do that.
Yeah.
And some people are gonna look at you and be like, "Okay, cool, dude," but that's the worst you're gonna get.
Yeah, 100%. You know, so if I could just quickly get to the operationalize this, just for these numbers, let's say you have 2 trainers at your gym that you could do this to, right? You train them, everybody has cards. You've trained them up, they have a script, they know what to do, you practice it feels not weird. Well, if each of you meet 10 people per week, that's 30 people per week. That's 1,500 people per year. Over 3 years, that's 4,500 people. In a lot of markets, you're going to be talking to the same people over and over. And by the way, that's not bad. That's not necessarily a bad thing, right? So, and there's tricks you can lubricate it. It'll cost you money, but if you're very nervous at the beginning, maybe buy some coffee, maybe give away coffee as a way to lubricate the conversation. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And if you do live events, by the way, that's a great move. Anytime you do live event with a table, have some coffee, which again is a great opportunity to support another local business, right?
Waters in the summertime. Be the flame, not the moth.
Precisely.
So you said scripts, and I want to give people a little bit on that, and then I want to move to sales for a moment. And then I want to wrap it up with strategy.
Yeah.
I think people think about scripts like they're a skeezy thing because they're thinking, I'm going to say the same thing no matter what to everybody. The way I like to think about scripts is they're a bridge to the conversation you want to have. So, for example, I was working with a client the other day, and he was struggling to get from, okay, this seems like a fit, to the next step.
Right.
So I said, let me just stop you here.
Yeah.
All you need to say right now, do you think you can help me based on the role play? Yes. All you need to say is, it seems like I can help you. The next step would be.
Yes.
And that's a script.
Yep. Yeah, and I think having those kinds of phrases, and I would note, I find having a repertoire of phrases for even coaching conversation, behavior change coaching, what are like the kind of go-to phrases that you do that feel normal in your mouth, but that are valuable. They're going to either ask open-ended questions or potentially lead someone down a process of their own inquiry. Because in practice, particularly when you're talking about any sort of consultative sales conversation in fitness, you tend to kind of say the same things every time, right? So let's say you don't do any sales, quote unquote, but you do an assessment. Well, you know that you always tell that same joke at the same part, and it does always get a laugh. Listen, there's something to be said for, you have to allow, of course, room to be human, right? Isidore Sharp, the founder of Four Seasons, said something I quote all the time: we systemize the predictable so we can humanize the exceptional. So there's going to be bandwidth. Yes, sometimes things are going to happen. There's going to be disclosure. But in practice, a script, to your point, is not because you're being this inauthentic used car salesman who has these, it's not the 70s. You're not doing these sumptive clothes anymore. We're not doing the puppy dog takeaway clothes. That's not what we're doing at all. We're just saying, what is the most generous way you can make it immediately clear to this person how you can help them, And whatever the best version of that is, can you do it consistently? So you're consistently doing the best job of being as generous and helpful as you can, explaining what it is that you offer, the types of questions you ask to help them understand what they care about, to help them understand what's gotten in the way. So I very much do understand why people feel pushback against that. And I would just say you tend to say a lot of the same things a lot. Just figure out what the best thing is and then just do that consistently.
Yeah, codify it.
Yeah, exactly.
So when it comes to sales, I think we can be fairly quick here, but what you were describing was we now know who the person is. We know what environment they're going to enjoy being in.
Yep.
So we know who we can partner with and we know what to do on the ground, right? Now people are actually going to start coming in and asking about enrolling.
Yeah.
We talked earlier about the overemphasis sometimes on closing the deal no matter what.
Right.
And when I say earlier, I mean on the street prior to doing this. So how do you help people understand the way that they would be wise to think about sales?
Yeah, it's so tricky, right? Because as we were saying before, the reality is, listen, as a gym owner or a trainer, that you want to help this person. And let's be honest also, we should acknowledge you have a financial incentive to help them. Oftentimes, you're going to go in these conversations, if you're not careful, with smelly commission breath. Whether you're actually commissioned or not, it's very clear to this other person that you're not actually on their agenda, right? You're on your agenda.
You have a quota, you got to meet a goal.
Yeah, and listen, like that's going to be normal. I'm not making that wrong. And also, listen, I have space for, I understand some of you are in a situation where mortgage got to get paid, you're stressed, you really want to make the sale. And I concede that's hard. Regardless, I think the best place to get into is, and this is maybe like the theme of our conversation to the extent that you can, is this is an act of service. This is an act of generosity. This is the more you can get into a mindset that really this is a two-way street, right? And in fact, the more you're in the mindset of like, I'm trying to understand if I can help you, because if I can help you, then this isn't a good fit anyway. Or as one of my mentors, Taki Moore, says, he puts it really so beautifully. He's like, there's no reason for any emotion because there's two things are going to happen. Either this is the right fit and we're obviously not going to work together, or we're the right fit and then, yeah, obviously it's going to make sense to work together. So there's no need to even have an emotion one way or the other. We're just going to sort of have this conversation together. Now, admittedly, that's said in a very elegant way. It's harder to do maybe than to say. But I think to my mind, so much of it is getting in the right frame about how you approach the conversation is important, right? Because this is another interesting too from acting world. Okay. So I was a professional actor for many years. Many of the salespeople I've trained over the years also have backgrounds as professional actors. And one thing that is hard about scripts is I think one of maybe the unspoken issues people have with them is it can start to come across as stilted. They start to talk just a little too fast. It's no longer, there's no longer what an actor would call sense of the first time. There's no longer a sense of you finding the words. They're rote. And it's interesting because in more boiler room, if you will, situations, they'll go so far as to prescribe the pace, where the pause is, where the volume increases, and then where the tone drops. They'll go so far as to actually prescribe that. And I think that can make a lot of sense. My assessment is that is a decent strategy to manufacture getting in the place, I don't want to say energetically because it sounds soft, I don't have a better word for it, but getting into the place where I'm so much on your agenda, I don't need anything from you. I just want to help you understand what you care about. And if I can help you with that, then I'd like to help you figure out what the path is to do that, right?
What I find interesting about that kind of stuff is, generally speaking, this is not specific, this is generally, it's used to help somebody pretend they give a shit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you cared,
Yeah.
this is what you would sound like.
So true.
So let's emulate that. But like, so if you do care, it's likely you're already doing that.
Yeah.
But there are rare cases in which people are just socially toned up.
Yeah, it's true.
And so it's listening to it and it's saying, hey, did you hear? Like, let's record you.
Yeah.
And I want you to listen to yourself.
Yeah.
How important was this to you? Is this tone moving you?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
How about try it again with some excitement?
Yes.
Like you actually care.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, because it is, it's interesting again, and this is maybe another interesting theme of this conversation. And I've had the opportunity to actually go back to my drama department at Syracuse University and talk about how much I feel, as I often joke, but I mean sincerely, my Bachelor of Fine Arts in the musical theater is an unfair advantage for owning a gym.
For sure.
Because even in the world of acting, there's different practices, right? There's different approaches. And one of them is outside in, right? Where ultimately as an actor, not even all actually, but there are a lot of methodologies where they would say having an interior life that is real and alive and is biochemically going through the emotional experience of the character is important. And one way you can get there is outside in. But to your point, yeah, it's very interesting because that, while I don't say it's wrong, I could see a case for it. It does, similar to me, ring the same way. It's like, it's an outside in approach, but maybe there's an inside out approach.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's truly having empathy for the people coming through your doors.
Yeah.
And this, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, this is a complete random plug for a guy I just discovered recently that I don't know if you have seen, named David J.P. Phillips. He's a Swedish presenter coach, and I've lost my mind. In the past week, I found his work, and as somebody that has a background as an actor that I think has had a lot of success as a speaker in the fitness space, this guy is a master. This guy is incredible. I think I'm probably going to sign up for his course. He breaks it down into 136 spices as far as gestures, playing with some of it's physicality, some of it's the way you speak, some of it's how you create curiosity in a conversation. So the content piece is not necessarily, I think, is relevant to the sales chat necessarily, but I think that level of rigor breaking down, it's probably beyond the scope of many people listening, but if you're somebody that is actually deeply interested in it, I would recommend you check his stuff out because I've been really impressed.
David J.P. Phillips?
David J.P. Phillips.
All right. I'll check. I'm speaking in August, I'm speaking in November, and I'm speaking early next year, so I'll certainly check it out.
This guy's, I find impressive.
Okay. The last topic I want to look at is strategy, and this is where I say I think about sports. You've mentioned several times you don't do all of these things, and in the power pamphlet book, whatever you want to call it, you say that too. And the way I meant this is like sports is if you're 5'7", you're probably not playing pro basketball.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean you can't play pro sports.
Yep.
So what sport should you play?
Yes.
And within that sport, what position should you play?
Yes.
And within that position, how should you play it? Right?
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about when I'm hearing all these different options.
Yep.
How do you help somebody figure out what's the appropriate strategy for me given my unique abilities, my market, all those things?
Yep. So I tend to move people through a process. So for instance, if we work with some of the Unicorn Society, we will have them go through a top level scorecard, report card, and then some report cards for various functions, one of them being marketing and sales. So I do think there's something said for assessing a number of potential tools. Because like I said, you don't need to do all of these things, but you probably need some. Probably need an offer in place. You probably do need a website that works. You need something so people are finding out that you exist. You need something to nurture those people. You need something to happen after they say they're interested, right? And as far as helping people find out what exactly to do, it's a little bit hard to do in a vacuum, but usually what we would do is if somebody's working with us in the Unicorn Society, we have done our best to actually make it as sequentially as we can. Now, I'm the first to admit, some of these are tough. Some of these are a little chicken of the eggy. But as one obvious example, if you don't have a website that makes it immediately clear who you help and how you help them, even if I bought 1,000 leads for $1 a lead on Facebook and sent them to the website, well, it doesn't really matter, right? So that feels like you got to do this first. And before you can do that, you probably need to understand who the avatar is. I think you also need to understand what is the offer. What is the first thing we have them do? And there is a lot of different ways this can look, but the type of offer you do is the first thing you're going to start with. That's an example of something that's going to vary a lot based on your skill, frankly, your skill and your interest as a salesperson, but also your model. So as an example, I will almost never recommend a free class as a first offer. However, if you have a large group facility if you have enough staff, if you have sufficient automations and you can handle that, so you just turn up the spigot and get as much volume as you can, and quality is always going to go down with quantity, unfortunately, friends. That's a law of sales gravity. Well, then a free class offer could really make sense, but I almost never recommend it, right? On the other hand, let's say you are a one-on-one personal trainer and you're not looking for massive scale because you can't handle it. And let's say you are very proficient at sales. Well, maybe the first thing you offer is a paid assessment or an unpaid assessment, not unlike what you all do, because you know that you can sort of lead people through this thing. And frankly, you don't have a very low barrier offer way to try it out without making any kind of commitment. You can maybe give them an hour for a modest commitment, but then you're going to sell them into the main thing. And based on what you do, that might be expensive, right? So that obviously is a particularly bad fit for something like a free, I don't even know what it would be, like a free week or whatever.
Well, so interestingly enough, we do a $97 paid assessment.
Yep.
What's interesting about it is we used to give that away for free. And it was harder to get people.
Yep.
Because it didn't feel like an offer.
Yep.
So when we were, I want to make this so clear for people.
Yeah.
We have not changed our process.
Right.
At all.
Right.
But we've started charging $97 for someone to go through it.
Yep.
And so now what happens is somebody feels like they're making a micro decision.
Yep.
And that micro decision, there's actually a really cool case study for this. I don't know what year it was, but people went around asking if they could put lawn signs out for a politician. Overwhelmingly, fuck you.
Right.
Then they said, got it.
Yeah.
Could we put this small sticker in your window?
Yes.
Yes. Mostly yeses.
Yes.
When they went back to the houses that said yes to putting the sticker in the window and said, can we put a lawn sign in your yard?
Yep.
They got a lot of yeses.
Yep.
I don't remember exactly the percentages, but you understand the gist. The point being, it's very difficult to go from nothing to everything.
Yes.
And I was very opposed in a dogmatic way for a while to offering something of lower barrier to get people to come in the door, because I felt like it was disingenuous.
Yep.
Like, it's never really $97. Like, they're either going to have to spend thousands of dollars with us, or we're not going to work with them at all.
Yep.
But then when you start thinking, well, if we want to help people, and this is human nature, we can fight it, or we can go with it.
Yeah, and the key thing about all of marketing and sales is you're only ever selling the next step, right? You're only ever selling the next thing. And it's interesting because in a vacuum, if to help give people listening some guidance, my general thumb is if you're a typical gym, a training gym, and you do some combo of small group or classes or both, I like $99 for 14 days. They get to try out what you do. They've made some step towards it, but to your point, they're not really making a big commitment, right? And I think that's the other way to think about this at a high level. The first thing people do tends to either be, hey, I just want to see if I like this, which can be a single assessment visit. If you do sports performance, I like a $99 paid assessment. If you're a personal trainer, maybe you do 3 sessions for $99, or maybe you do the assessment and then you sell them in the main thing. But I think in a vacuum, even though I said I'm reluctant to give maxims because businesses are different, I think something that's $99 specifically, maybe $49, but $99 to keep it simple, is going to be the move. And then you just figure out for what you offer for your model, for what the endpoint is, what that is, right? So in your model, obviously it makes perfect sense. It wouldn't be, you can't do 2 weeks of what you do for $99. That's not an option. But a $99 paid assessment, you're right, gives them something on the path. Because for most gyms, you can't really sell the big thing. I think the closest thing you could is if you're not going to do the, hey, I just want to know if I like this, your other option is sometimes referred to as a defined endpoint program, the much maligned 6-week transformation, challenge, reboot, brand it what you will. But I would note, even for those, people are not buying that off a landing page.
Nope.
There, the first thing you're selling is a phone call. The first thing you're selling is like, let's get on the phone. Let's talk about what you're doing, right?
I'm curious your thoughts about this.
Yeah.
I think the higher end, the less you want to try out for other people. In other words, we would never give somebody a week to see if they like it.
Right.
We're not trying out for you.
Yep.
We're going to put you through an assessment.
Yep.
You're going to pay for it, and then we're going to offer you something.
Yep.
if we the offer's either a referral to somewhere else or enrollment.
Yep.
If we were $199 a month, yeah, come try it.
Yep.
See if you like it. That's my. I'm curious where you land.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, right? Because you could argue that in your model, the first thing you offer after that is a kind of defined endpoint. You're not, and you do a great job in the sales conversation, not guaranteeing anything in 12 weeks, right? You're going to do your best to like good faith, be like, look, it's going to take 40 to 60 or whatever. But in practice, I think anybody sees that there's a path that they're going forward. Really what you're selling is, I might even say you are actually selling them on the longer term 60 session journey. You're just saying that if any given moment, we're not living up to our part of the bargain, you can opt out.
Yep.
We just have to keep earning the business over and over. So it's almost like you're doing a defined endpoint plan with a real good endpoint that's a much bigger commitment, but they're doing it as a payment plan, paying as they go, knowing that they can pull up stakes at any point if they don't feel like they're getting requisite value.
I like to think of us as an Aston Martin dealership.
Yeah.
Right? Like, get on the wait list.
Yeah, 100%.
We'll let you know if we're going to sell you one.
Yeah, and it's such an amazing model. It was so fun for me to be there today, of course, because my my business has been a little bit more for the people. Admittedly, the gym I have in New Jersey, which is, I don't think I've probably clarified, as a franchise. I'm a franchisee of a small group personal training brand called Alloy Personal Training. That's a little higher end. And MFF by no means is cheap per se, but it's a decidedly middle class brand, which again was intentional because I grew up without a ton of money. Actors didn't have a ton of money. They're, the people. But it is thrilling to watch what you're doing too, because it's such a different and fun game to say, well, if all things being equal, if resources are infinite and we just charge as much as we need to and we back it out for what we want, well, then you still get margin. You get to do the level of personal care and all that sort of customer service stuff that you and I geek out on, stuff like, buying a personalized book for each person, the fact that people are, doing a 90-minute to 2-hour paid, essentially, assessment sales conversation after having done a 30-minute conversation. And also, of course, the brand, the physical facility, all that stuff also starts to really matter, which is also really, very impressed what you've done.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to put in the show notes where they can get your Power Pamphlet book,
the Power Pamphlet,
where they can find you online. Is there anything that you think was left out of this conversation for them?
Oh, I don't know that there was anything left out of this. I guess the thing that I just want to express and take every chance I can to just thank everybody in the fitness industry. I just love what we do, and it's so hard. And I know that there's so many people that care so much and have such great intentions and work so hard and historically haven't always been able to put together the pieces of the marketing sales stuff, and it felt icky. And I guess if anything, and you're probably already sold on this, but as I always say, the first step of sales is you sell them again. So let me sell you again that what you're doing is an unqualified moral good. So anybody listening or watching, I just want to say I feel such appreciation and gratitude to be in this industry. And I sincerely hope this stuff that I put out is helpful for you, because I want you to win. And thank you for making our society and communities better.
Well, I can say, having read it myself this morning, by the way.
Great.
Right?
Less than 30-minute read.
It's a 30-minute read.
It's a feature, not a bug.
And you can read it several times.
Yeah.
And should.
Yeah.
There is zero fluff. It is just, here's the thing.
Yep.
And so I can endorse that it's easy to read, it's easy to apply, and there's plenty of opportunity should they have questions with you to create that opportunity.
Yeah, indeed.
Mark Fisher.
Thanks, buddy.
Turn pro. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Active Life Podcast. Please remember, give us a hand, rate it, review it wherever you listen to shows. We are on a mission to humanize the healthcare industry by professionalizing the fitness industry to empower the individual to live a life unlimited by the way that their body looks, feels, or performs. If you are inspired by that mission and want to jump on the wagon, find us anywhere. Active Life Professional on Instagram, Active Life RX on Instagram. Come to me personally at Dr. Sean Pastuch. We want to welcome you onto the train. We want you to be a part of the mission. We want to offer you the opportunity to pursue this right alongside us. We're inspired by your effort, and we hope to help you in your journey. Turn pro.